All right, day 4 in the books. The Sweet 16 is set. Tate and I, our marathon, our 4-day marathon. How are you feeling? Beyond, irregardless. Shout out to all the grammar people out there that are gonna blow me up for saying irregardless. Regardless of the North Carolina situation, which we'll get to. Other than that, how are you feeling just overall in 4 days of sitting on our ass watching basketball? You were concerned about putting on weight. This always seems to be a problem with Tate. He packs on the pounds. You said this before the tournament. Mm-hmm. You said every year I get very lazy. I do not eat well. So how is your body holding up? Are you a Michael Porter 100%? Are you a Kyle Guy 80%? Are you 100% of 80%?
I'm 100% out on this tournament as I sit here right now. I've spent 4 days putting in the work, doing all I can do, trying to research all these matchups, spend an entire season watching all these games, scouting all these teams, and then the tournament field comes out, we get the bracket, and I'm saying to myself, I can't wait for all these good matchups that we're going to have in this tournament. I can't wait to see, Arizona play Kentucky in the second round. What a great draw for us. What a great game for us. I can't wait to see what happens in the South region. You got this Cincinnati rock fight team, but then you got the Virginia version of Cincinnati that's like its own version of a terrible defensive, setup where people don't want to watch them play. And then you got the Blue Bloods that are in the bracket. And as we sit here today, only one Blue Blood survives. Mm-hmm. The top 4 seeds in the South are all gone. And we have just a hodgepodge of. I'm not going to say I'm not going to say this is worst case scenario, but for what the tournament usually is, which is the best version of basketball, the best brand of basketball, we've seen, I would say, a deviation from the plan,
right?
From what we'd want to see. And right now I'm just hurt because I expected more from this tournament. I expected more from the players on the court. I expected more from the officials. I expected more from the analysts. I expected more from myself.
So
I'm just shook right now.
Every single friend of the program listening to you talk right now is saying, Titus, when Tate shuts up, you better roast him for North Carolina losing and saying that's the reason he's out on this tournament.
No, that's not why.
I'm going to go ahead and acknowledge that Tate, this is very convenient of you to be out on this tournament as soon as North Carolina gets absolutely blown out by Texas A&M. But I will back you up on this. Mm-hmm. We're going to get to the humiliating part for your alma mater in a second. And I'm not just saying this because Ohio State lost. Again, I was very level-headed on this Ohio State NCAA tournament and how everything went down. I was happy with how Ohio State's tournament ended up. It all was fine and well by me. I'm kind of in agreement with you that this tournament is a little underwhelming, and a lot of people are listening saying, how could you possibly say that? We have a 16-over-1. We have Loyola winning 2 close games with the Sister Jean thing. We have Nevada's run has been a lot of fun. We have Michigan's buzzer beater. That's fun. There have been all sorts of moments in this tournament. How can you guys be out on this tournament? I'll give you 2 reasons.
It's not the moments that matter.
Yeah,
it's the what it means after the moment, which is we have to watch these teams play in the next round.
First of all, there's been a lot of bad basketball, and the close games are great. It's great that we have all these games on, and you can kind of flip back and forth. If these games were on individually, and sort of how the Saturday-Sunday worked, where CBS shows, we started a game out here is at noon, so I guess. Or no, it was at 9. In the East, it was at noon. They show a full game, take a 20-minute break for the other teams to warm up, and then show another full game. If it was like that, a lot of these games, people would be losing their mind having to watch them because we just tune in. We're just like, oh, so the game's a 5-point game with 5 minutes. Let me turn over. You kind of see the end of it, and you're like, that must have been a pretty good game. But if you actually watch these games, the basketball is absolutely horrendous. I mean, UMBC, Kansas State was one of the worst basketball games I've ever seen in my life. And it wasn't like a Virginia or Cincinnati situation where it was like, oh man, this is, or even Syracuse, Michigan State. That was another just absolutely terrible game. But at least Syracuse, that was sort of their plan. So some small part of me was like, I respect how this is.
And we're conditioned to it with Boeheim and Syracuse. We expect this to happen. I guess Michigan State had no idea they were going to run a zone today.
Yeah, that was news.
That was news to them. They went out there and what are these guys doing? Why are they not matching up with us?
But just the overall, as you're watching these games, it's like, God, the basketball's terrible. The officiating might be even worse. Mm-hmm. I mean, the officials just cannot resist calling offensive fouls, whether they're charges, whether they're guys sliding over and grabbing their nuts and thrusting their hips at guys that are jumping in the air, and then the refs call charges on that, Whether it's just like a ball handler, it just drives to the basket and a defender is knows he's beat by a step, so he just falls over and throws his arms up and looks like a push off. And then like they show the replay and they're like the defender or the offensive guy did lift his arm up. It's like, of course he lifted his arm up. That's how moving works. Mm-hmm. You take a step, you kind of move your arms as you move. Like that whole replay system, like where you slow down everything.
Well, every
like,
time
look at
it's always a chart. The officials are always right usually when they show it for whatever reason. You know, every single time they have the comment. Grant Hill, great call.
Why is no commenter like, this is all bullshit? What are we doing here? But like every single fan feels that way. It doesn't matter which team you're on. I mean, the Xavier Florida State game was just a complete debauchery of just flopping and charge calls at the end of that. I mean, JP Sleeves fouls out the final game of the year on a shitty charge call.
Which almost felt fitting
at the
time, you know, because Chris Mack loses his mind and JP goes out. And we should say JP, we had him as a crying candidate. We thought that he would go out in this game, completely alienate himself from the team, sit on the bench, put a towel over his head, pull the Cam Newton, not talk to anyone, be upset. Everyone's like, what's going on here? He's having a bad attitude. He's about to cry. But instead, JP shocks the world.
Yeah.
Is a great teammate.
What a dick.
Is high-fiving everybody, is trying to talk the team up, saying the game's not over.
What a dick. What a dick.
We can still have a chance, guys.
Yeah.
JP, this is not what we expect.
This is not you.
Put the sleeves on, get an attitude, cop an attitude, do what you got to do.
This is not your brand. What are you doing? You're supposed to be wearing first of all, you didn't wear the sleeves tonight. Mm-hmm. Maybe that's why you lost. Secondly, you're supposed to be a dick. You're a guy who was talking shit to Mick Cronin at the end of that game. That's what we want to see. Mm-hmm. We want you to be the hated guy that's doing the
dropping F-bombs.
The Gator chomp / Wisconsin Badger chomp, whatever motion at Wisconsin's fans. That's the JP we know and love. And you're out there dapping up teammates and encouraging from the bench. He did put the towel over his head
at the end. Finally, we did get it at the end. Yes.
But we don't know if he cried. Maybe he was just maybe he was bowing his head.
And I put that on the camera, man. That's not on JP.
Yeah. There's got to be some sort of guy within the NCAA has to know that moment and just walk by and like just pull the towel off his head. That's how that has to work.
Or a teammate,
We have to
get in one shiny moment.
We should have had some sort of like Truman Show situation where like we have enough people around the situation that know.
Someone get that towel. Someone get the towel.
We have a towel over JP. Mm-hmm. Repeat, please.
Someone go grab that towel.
So there was bad officiating. There's sloppy basketball. Mm-hmm. The end of these games.
The wrong teams keep winning.
Yes, Tate says Tate's bracket. Go explain your philosophy with how your bracket is a minefield, but you don't feel bad about it.
Yeah, because the whole time I've had the right logic, which is today I went into today and I told you this before we started the day. I said 2-7 upsets. That's the special. That's what you want.
Yeah.
And we got it last year. We got South Carolina over Duke to get the Final Four run. I felt like this was the same thing this season where we don't have juggernauts at the top. We have some pretty good teams, but they're all susceptible to something. North Carolina is a team that is susceptible to a front line. They play, I think, the best front line I've ever seen in college basketball history. Ever seen. Never seen anything like it. Robert Williams, the third, may be the best power forward in college basketball over the past decade at least. I don't know. We can go back and fact check that. But that's all that's to say is I go into today and I'm like, Cincinnati, North Carolina, those are two teams you need to be concerned because Texas A&M is a pretty good team. I didn't think that Starks was going to have the day he did. Of course, he has an amazing day and plays the best game of his entire life, of course. Mm-hmm. Cincinnati, going to that game, I'm like, Nevada, I'll say it for you. Nevada.
You're coming around.
Yeah, had a great team, but you're still worried that Cincinnati wasn't going to be able to score when they needed to, even though they had a 20-point lead at one point in this game.
Yep.
So I say all that to say 7-2 special felt like it was there. Texas A&M comes out against North Carolina. They're down 8 early. It looks like, I think you were watching the game at your house before we even linked up, and you say North Carolina's got this one in the bag. I'm just going to watch the end of the first half.
I'm staying like 3 blocks away from Ringer HQ,
Mm-hmm.
and Tate has the keys to the Enterprise here, and I texted him. I said, Tate, let me know when you get to the Enterprise, and I'll walk over and watch the game. So Tate texts me, says, I'm here. Carolina's up like 5 or 6 at this point. Mm-hmm. It sort of felt like they were in control. I was waiting for a timeout to walk over. I decide, okay, now if I miss however many minutes of this game while I'm walking over, it's not that big of a deal because I'm sure Carolina's just going to kind of extend their lead, go into half, probably up 10 or so. And by the time I make it over, they're down like 10. and I have no idea what happened. And I walk in, I'm like, Tate, I kind of did what Kyle did to me.
Yes.
During the Ohio State
and
game.
Kyle did the exact same that he did to you yesterday. He walks in as Carolina has a 6-point lead, and he's like, you know what I would hate to do? Be an NFL player. Those rookie contracts, they suck. Just be an NFL player right now. And he's talking about all these other things and bringing up how great St. Patrick's Day was. He has like 14 different tangents going on. Meanwhile, Texas A&M continues to score every single time. North Carolina, they can't beat a zone. This is the shocking revelation of this whole tournament is that no one knows how to beat a zone. You know, Michigan State included today. North Carolina, Texas A&M puts a zone on them. They have no idea what to do. Joel Berry is shocked by the idea of a zone, even though they've carved up Syracuse every single time they've played them this year.
They beat Duke in the ACC tournament.
Just the fact that Duke runs his zone should let
That's
you know
why
where
I'm
we're
telling
at
you
in
it's a
this
Duke year. No one can beat a zone. That's what I think I tweeted that during the Texas A&M game as I just watched Syracuse beat Michigan State because Michigan State, again, as you said, looked like they had no idea how to beat a zone. It's mostly because mid-range is dead. Mm-hmm. The way to beat a zone is the high post, we know that, and the short corners. This is elementary stuff. Everyone knows how to beat a zone. It's that unless you have a guy that can like make a play in those spots, you're screwed. And no one practices that anymore. You know what they practice? They practice threes, Tate. They practice dunks because that's what is cool. That's what these kids think is cool, Tate. You know what's cool in my day? Fundamentals, winning basketball games. But no,
I was gonna say I think that's still pretty cool.
Still pretty cool.
That's still pretty
but
cool.
nobody, I
that's
swear,
the whole point of this tournament.
I swear nobody knows how to.
This tournament's ruining college basketball and basketball as a whole.
It really is because the basketball is sloppy, the officiating is bad, and then the other point I want to make is that I swear the last like 2 minutes of every one of these games takes at least 45 minutes. The refs have no. I guess this goes back to the bad officiating. The refs have no confidence in any call they make. Mm-hmm. They blow the whistle. They all look at each other like, "What'd you see? I don't know. I saw something. I don't know what I saw. Should we go to the monitor?"
It's been a watershed moment too because every single time there's any if and or but play, they basically every single player on the court's doing this. The coaches are doing this. Every single manager's doing this. Like the people in the crowd are doing this.
The coaches know that they can get a free timeout that way.
Yes,
the ball goes out of bounds.
This is what you do. You just call your team over so the refs have to go to the monitor. You come here, guys. And
it's so obvious how it works. Like I noticed it sitting when I was sitting in New Orleans. When I was at the courtside, the doubleheader thing.
Ohio State, North Carolina.
Yeah, and I'm sitting next to Ohio State bench, and the ball goes out late in the game when Ohio State's losing to Carolina. The game is out of hand at this point, and our director of operations stands up and goes, Coach Holt, they can review it. And Holtman turns around and looks at him and goes, wasn't it out on us, though? And he goes, yeah, but they can review it. It's a free timeout. And Holt's like, come on, that's bullshit. Like, I'm not going to do that, but like that was like the strategy. And then I realized after I saw that happen, I was like, I bet other teams are doing this. And then you see it all the time in these tournaments. That's exactly what they're doing. They know they can get a free timeout. They know. I mean, you could have a guy on your team. You could watch him just punt the ball into the stands. And if it's under 2 minutes, you can call for a review. And I think they legally have to give you a review. Like, you can review anything. There's no shortage of coaches' challenges. That's my understanding, is that any coach can challenge any call under 2 minutes, and it's just a free timeout. It's getting out of hand, Tate.
And let's just go ahead and put a precursor to when it's really going to get out of hand, because there's a Sweet 16 game where under 2 minutes is going to be a free-for-all of trying to get on the good side of whatever official is making a call. Between Jim Boeheim and Coach K and the review under 2 minutes, there's going to be something going on in that game. It's going to be like a 57-55 game. Jim Boeheim, it's going to go off the foot of Brissett or something like that, and Boeheim's going to be freaking out, yelling at refs. K's going to be trying to grab him to the side and try to swoon them over to his corner.
I think Boeheim is more obvious with his working over of the refs. I feel like K's the guy that calls him over and just whispers in the ear and like kind of tells them, "I will kill you.
I know where your wife lives." you're like, what did he say?
Boeheim's like throwing his arms up and like kind of yelling, like, "What the hell was that? What you did?" And K's just like, "Come here."
Yeah, Kay has something threatening to say, and you're like, that was the most chilling moment of my entire life. I hope that I never have to deal with that human again.
You see the ref's eyes just light up, and the blood rushes out of their face. That's how Kay handles it. So should we go game by game with this? I mean, we start the day. Purdue kind of is in control against Butler. Matt Painter. First of all, Vince Edwards gets in foul trouble. Isaac Haas does not play. Isaac Haas really, really wants to play. Has the brace on his elbow. The NCAA does not clear it because it's a goddamn cinder block on his elbow with like a bunch of duct tape around it.
You're already a weapon, Isaac, and now you can't have this.
They announced the decision, and like all the Purdue fans on Twitter are like, how come? Explain to me how Miles Bridges' mom can get $40 worth of steak and Isaac Haas can't play with a cinder block on his elbow. I'll tell you how, God damn it, it's because of corruption. The NCAA only cares about money. And you see like all these Purdue fans losing their minds on Twitter. But as it turns out, Isaac Haas probably couldn't play anyway. He if you actually watch him warming up, he couldn't even use his arm.
Yes, but it also worked out perfectly where he was involved and invested in the game. He's like they kept calling him the biggest cheerleader you ever seen, and as Isaac Haas just high-fiving everyone on the sidelines. It actually worked in the favor of Purdue. They seemed looser. Yeah, and we were joking about this. This is the whole thing that everyone's doing. Does Purdue look better without Haas?
Harms is better defensively.
Yeah, now that they can go small, and then Vince Edwards looks like he's the primary option on offense now.
We got our answer when Painter goes with the small lineup and takes Harms out, and it's there've been very few possessions. I forget what the stat was. I think they want to say it was like 100 possessions all season that I saw. Someone had tweeted where Harms or Haas was not on the floor for Purdue all season. Like they basically every single game, the combined minutes between Harms and Haas is 40 every single game. One comes out, the other comes in. That's kind of how they operate. So Painter has that stretch where he goes small, and Butler comes back, and everyone's like, "What is Painter doing here? What's going on?" I think we got our answer. Probably not better without Haas, but Harms. I like that Harms was like. It felt like this was his announcement to the rest of the country, and I know everybody's watched Purdue. Like people that follow college basketball know Purdue. They've watched Harms all year. I don't mean that Purdue is like an irrelevant team all year. It's just that the NCAA tournament comes around. You get a lot of casual fans that are tuning in. This was the only game going on. Harms is making it. I believe it was his first start of his career. It had to have been. Why would it not be?
It definitely was.
Yeah. I didn't know that for a fact. But I'm trying to imagine. Why would it
not
not
one
be?
Purdue game that Isaac Haas has not started.
Yeah.
In a long
Why
time,
would it not be? So Harms' first career. So he's getting more attention than he ever has, and a lot of comments about his hair. A lot of comments about, can we get this man some hair gel? So my question to you, Tate, like if we were to power rank the breakout stars, like the meme stars, I don't know how to describe it, like the camera hogging type people that like were fun, and then it feels like America's going to turn on them. We have like the guy who ran the UMBC Twitter account. I don't know how.
We have already turned on him.
Yeah, we've already turned on. I turned on him the moment he was feeling himself, and he tweeted something like he had a good thing going, and then he tweets like, by the way, we kicked Virginia's ass on Twitter tonight too, which was just him like gassing himself up. I was like, come on, guy.
And now we're doing the thing where every single year there's an NCAA champion, but there's only been one 16 seed to upset a 1 seed. And everyone's like patting themselves on the back for that thought.
I didn't mind him gassing up the team. I didn't mind him, some of the other stuff he was doing. He was talking smack to the people that doubted him. That was fun. It was all fun. But then when he was like, by the way, we won on Twitter too, and he started feeling this, I was like, come on, dude. Come on. What are you, like a 20-year-old intern somewhere? Like, just pump the brakes a little bit. We have that guy. We have Sister Jean, who I can't imagine anybody possibly turning on her.
I'm going to turn on her.
I'm going to knock on
With the way this tournament has gone, God did not help me out in this tournament, so I have now turned on Sister Jean.
We have the Musselman family, led by Eric Musselman's daughter. But then
he's
I believe
got the whole family. Yeah,
his sons just come busting in, and also Musselman himself is sort of like becoming a meme. Like he's dropping the F-bombs after the first game when Nevada beats Texas, and he's in the locker room dropping F-bombs. And then he's just kind of like a loose cannon in general, and it's all fun. And I should reiterate, all of these things are fun. Everything's fun. But as we all know, there becomes an oversaturation point where people are just like instantly decide enough's enough, get this thing out of my face.
And it's also, where do you go from here? Like, what's next? So today, Musselman, he wins the game. He has his whole family come out. They're all celebrating. They're all on camera. They act as if they won the national title. He goes in the locker room. He takes his shirt off. He celebrates with the team. They're popping bottle. They're popping water. They're doing the whole thing. Like, what happens if they get the Elite Eight? Like, what's the next thing? Does he have to go pantless? Like, he's already done too much, you know? Like, come on, Mus.
We also and then the last one I was gonna say is Harms. Harms' hair. I think like people were like, oh, it's cool how his hair flows and he kind of fixes it at all times. But I guarantee by next game, if it hasn't already happened already, a lot of people are like, dude, I was already here in January with Harms. I don't know what you're talking about. I understand that. I'm saying the consensus, if it hasn't already, by the time the Texas Tech game's over, America is going to decide, okay, enough with the fixing of the hair, Luke Kennard. That's because you know how Luke Kennard used to always fix his hair. Mm-hmm. Like, I feel like we're going to get that point.
Luke did this. He was at his ears. Harms is the full swoop
No,
across.
Luke had the bald thing, too.
Yeah.
He was like covering up the bald spot. Yeah. He was just covering up the bald spot.
But he'd always play with it. He'd put it back behind his ears.
Harms thinks he's like Uncle Jesse with the flow, and it's just like, I'm going to kind of Like he's
Yes,
like
it's
James Dean.
90s, very 90s.
James Dean. I should emphasize when I'm talking about James Dean. The four people who got that are
yeah, they love that.
God
Yeah,
damn it, Titus, that was good. I really don't. Oh, so rank for me the ones that you think America's going to turn on first. I guess the UMBC thing's kind of dead and gone, so maybe that one's kind of. But so to recap, the UMBC Twitter guy, Sister Jean, the Musselman family at large, and Matt Harms' hair. Which one to you is like? We're dangerously close to overexposure.
Well, we turn on people when they lose, right? That's how you kind of have to look at it. It's like who's going to be in the loser. Like UMBC, the reason we turned on them is because they lost. UMBC had won today. Everyone would be like, man, I love this Laos guy. Yeah. Mara's awesome. I really love this team. Ryan Odom's such a great coach. He's done a great job with this team. And now that they're done, everyone's kind of like, all right, we're done with these guys. I think Nevada's going to win their next game, which means they're probably going to lose now that I say that. So I'm going to give Musselman some more time. I think he's going to go to the Elite Eight. I'm going to give him a little bit more room. Sister Jean already put it out there that they're losing in the Sweet 16. She already said this. So what's going to happen is she has now cursed the team. Now she's been the number one fan, but now she put like this moment, like where she's like, we're going to get to this point, and then it's all over. And when that happens, everyone's gonna be like, Sister Jean, could you not could you not say the Elite Eight?
How could you?
Could you not like do a sort of deal? Could you not meet in the middle with God and say, God, I know Final Four is too much for this program, but maybe we can get an Elite Eight out of this. Like, why settle with a Sweet 16? So I think all those comments will come back to bite her at some point.
Interesting.
And she's doing the thing. They asked her about being a star. Like you've become a sensation, and she said, I think I've become an international
star.
Sensation. Like as if she's Mr. Pitbull or something like that. It's like,
man, so
Sister Jean,
you're already over
down.
Sister Jean.
Yeah, I've already turned on her.
That's pretty bad.
I'm sorry, Loyola. I'm sorry.
I don't think you're apologizing to Loyola. I think you need to apologize to the entire country.
At large.
Yeah, I'm going with the Musselman family. I think people are going to be out on them. I think that's my prediction. I'm not saying myself. You kind of answer that with yourself, your own little biases. Biases. You answered that like how you sort of feel. I think the Musselman. I think people are just gonna be out on them. Just like the coach. The coach, like, it makes a lot of sense. But like, do we need to see the daughter like every? Because like I said, we all know what this is leading to. It'd be one thing if like the cameramen actually cared about the Musselman family, but they do not. They keep showing the daughter just to set it. They're just building. They're building. Every Nevada win, they're like, this is awesome. Has a family.
They're super excited about
this. Keep it going.
They keep climbing.
And then as soon as the loss happens, they're just going to zoom right in on the daughter. Yes. And we are going to have the NCAA guy. Like, that's a situation where the daughter puts a towel over the head. The NCAA is coming and ripping the towel off and like, listen, child.
You have your good moments.
Your dad is getting paid a lot of money for us to shove this camera in your face right now and watch you cry. So about the games anyway. Purdue takes care of Butler early. Let's dive into Texas A&M, North Carolina. The people are. I can't let you off the hook, Tate. You have to let me know what went wrong here. Worst loss of Roy Williams' NCAA tournament career. Mm-hmm. Texas A&M is the better team from start to finish, except for the start where North Carolina was winning. But Texas A&M, it felt like they had a better team like at every position. They had like a better player at every single position. And you disagreed with me when I said that. Which is fine. You can make your case now. Who is your scapegoat on Carolina? Who are you out on? You famously, whenever Carolina does not win a national championship, you famously like to pick one player, say, I never want to see this man back on campus again. He's dead to me. I may be making some of this up.
But the only person I said that about was Marcus Page, and he was a senior and he left. No, I'm kidding. I will say this about this team. First off, I said on the podcast last night, I said I was very concerned, I was very worried, and I was worried about one man, Robert Williams. And I was right. He was a problem, and it wasn't because of offense, and I think that was the problem with this whole game was I was worried going into this game about these two guys, Tyler Davis and Robert Williams, and then I kept telling myself, and this is why I hate Duke so much, because I kept telling myself that, well, you've already beaten Bagley and Carter. These guys aren't any better than them, so you're going to be fine. But what I forgot was that Bagley and Carter run a 2-3 zone defense, and they don't actually play defense. And, I was worried about Bagley and Carter on offense, and I forgot that they don't play defense. And I remember that Robert Williams and Tyler Davis,
defense.
They both play defense. And not only did they play defense, they pride themselves on defense. And all they wanted to do was block shots today. Yeah. And it was a block party in Charlotte. And This whole little subsection of the tournament in Charlotte, there's something in the water down there. It's just upset city. And we get Virginia, UMBC down there. We get Texas A&M, North Carolina today. And Robert Williams and Tyler Davis. Robert Williams, when he blocked Brandon Robinson driving to the rim, I mean, granted, his hand did go into the basket. You know, some officials that probably didn't work in the Pac-12 and have seen real basketball may have, you know, called goaltending, but not these guys.
That would have changed the margin to like 22.
That would have changed the momentum at this point. At this point, Carolina's still up 4 in the game, I think. So that was a big moment. I'm just kidding, folks. I know it was a blowout. But Robert Williams and Tyler Davis were unstoppable. And then DJ Hogue, this guy. I mean, this guy, really? I'm going into this game, and I'm thinking, I don't have to worry about him. He's not going to hit shots today. This is not what this guy does. You know, I'm not worried about Starks. This isn't the 90s Knicks. I'm not worried about this guy named Starks. He's not going to do anything to us to hurt anyone. And they play one of the most complete games I've ever seen. I don't think Billy Kennedy said a word to his team the entire time. He was just standing over there in shock. He was like, I can't believe this is working out so well. Roy forgets, one, he has timeouts. Two, Andrew Platek's on the bench, and maybe we can put him out there to just try something. Just throw him out there and say, hey, Andrew, do something. Go press. Try to hurt somebody. Like, do whatever you got to do.
Well, I'm going to stop you right there. When you've reached the point where you're like, we need Andrew Platek to come in and
That's
save
what
the
I'm
day.
saying. This game was a blowout.
That's kind of a problem.
Texas A&M blew out North Carolina today. I felt bad for Theo.
Did Carolina
Pinson,
at least cover, though?
No, they did not because they lost by a lot.
Yeah, but I assume the line was like, what, A&M minus 20 or?
Yeah, I think it was A&M minus 22. That's what it was. It was a 116 game. Yeah, it was a. I still can't believe it happened. I think Roy was shocked that it happened. Joel and Theo were obviously shocked that it happened. But it was the same thing as Virginia. They got down and they started looking around and they were like, okay, so we're 5 for 30 from 3. Let's just keep jacking and see what happens.
Yeah, if we make this one though, it'll probably. I'm sure
this will get us back in the game.
Yeah,
if we hit this 3 from 35 feet, this will go in, and then the thing will start rolling. And they started pressing, and it was.
Got to make
shots.
Got to make shots. You miss shots.
I'm taking Texas A&M though. I believed in an SEC team that was a 7 seed was going to make a run to the Final Four. I famously believed it was going to be Arkansas. I was famously wrong that it was not Arkansas. They lost in the first round to Butler. And I think Texas A&M is legit. I thought it was going to be guard play that takes a team to the finals, but in this tournament, I think guarding the rim protection is a big deal.
Texas A&M, I said early in the year when they were kind of rolling, they had problems with suspensions, problems with injuries. They had the stretch where they were like pretty much the start of SEC play. I forget what they started, like 0-5 or something. Might have even been worse than that.
Yeah.
But they hit a rough patch. But at the start of the year, I remember saying like they have the best front court in the country, and if not the best front court, maybe like Michigan State's better than them, maybe Duke's better than them, you could argue. But the point is, like, they have an unbelievable front court, and I wonder like how far can that take them? And then they kind of struggle in the SEC, and you're like, okay, well maybe you just kind of cast A&M off. So I'm not gonna pretend like I saw this coming in any way, shape, or form that Texas A&M was gonna get this hot, but they did show in the non-conference schedule that they were capable of doing this. I mean, those 3 guys that you said, Davis and Williams and Hogue, they're incredible. They're 3. I mean, when you're starting a small forward who's like 6'9" and can shoot threes, and you got 2 shot blocking defensive. You got Williams doing windmills in every single game he's played in the Cincinnati tournament.
It's the exact same windmill. It's crazy.
And his face is at the rim.
I was upset that he was cherry picking at the time. I was
you respect it now, yeah.
I was yelling at him. I was very upset. I just
Tate
can't believe.
was so shook by this. He calls his parents, and I watched. It was such a sad phone call watching you talk to your. You're like, Dad.
None of this happened.
Dad, they said we can't play anymore. And he's like, son, it's just part of growing up. These things happen. Sometimes you just don't always win. You're like, but Dad, we got to play in the championship last year and the year before. They're gonna have a Sweet 16 without us, Dad. It was really funny. It was cute. It was kind of cute though. How Tate kind of had his first moment of.
He just said, remember who the champs are, and then I thought to myself, oh yeah, that's right. 2017 champs.
That was I think the best impression I've ever tried to do.
Yeah,
you're the king of the impressions on this podcast.
Good.
So
I liked it. That was good.
Get a chance at you. So, Carolina, no trophies to show this year.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of disappointment, a lot of heart. But you did beat Duke twice though. You beat Duke 2 out of 3 times. However, do I need to remind the friends of the program that Tate going into the ACC tournament game against Duke? You said on this podcast,
to the rubber match, yes.
Into the rubber match, you said, I want to beat Duke so badly that if you told me that Carolina will beat Duke tonight, but then that means that Duke will then go on to win the national championship, I would take that deal. Do you take those words back now that it's looking like Duke is going to win the national championship, because this tournament has become an absolute cluster of Loyolas and Nevadas and what have yous, and on top of that, it's become a 2-3 zone tournament, and on top of that, Duke is probably the most talented team.
I feel like Sister Jean, like I cashed a bad check. I said last year, as North Carolina was making their redemption run, one of the greatest runs in college basketball history, back to the national title after what happened to Chris Jenkins. I kept saying to a higher power, if you just give me this, I don't care what happens in the future. If I just get this, I don't care. I don't care if we don't go back to the tournament for the next 10 years. I don't care if this is the last time I ever see a national title. This is what I'm saying to myself as it's happening. As Oregon, as Jordan Bell can't get a rebound. As every single thing was happening last year, I was saying all this. And then when I got done, I was looking back and I was like, that was a lot for you to say. I hope that nobody actually heard that. And it sort of thing happened on the podcast. Unfortunately, there's a microphone in my face half the time of my life. And that was one of those things where I'm just cashing the checks for the future, and I'm saying these things because we had to beat Duke in that game. It had to happen. It had to happen. And now, as I sit here and we're out of the tournament and it's 2018, I hate the past version of myself. I hate what I've said. I don't agree with anything I've said in the past.
I hate who I was.
I hate who I was. I hate who I am. And I hope that'll be better in the future. And right now, as I sit here, I will say this. If Duke wins the national title this year, the podcast is over on this side. I can't handle it. With this tournament, I've never felt so right about everything, but been so wrong about everything at the same time.
My logic was right, but my picks were wrong. Is what Tate says.
It's unbelievable.
So I guess if you're looking at it, and you want some hope with Duke, they are on the tough side of the bracket. We've reached a point where Kentucky has the cakewalk. Somehow the Kentucky fans, they cried hard. Maybe Kentucky fans did what you did, where as soon as the bracket comes out, they just fall on their knees and they're just praying. They're like, "We'll do anything, please." You're giving us Davidson, and then Arizona, and then Virginia, and then Cincinnati, and then North Carolina, and then Duke or Villanova. Like, oh my God, there's no way we can beat all those teams. We'll do anything. Just please give us an easy draw this year, and we'll. Because that seems to be what's happening to Kentucky. I mean, they're playing Davidson, Buffalo. Now they have Kansas State, and then the winner of Loyola, Nevada to go to the Final Four. And then probably going to play, like, at this point, Michigan or Gonzaga, it seems like. But even then.
They're going to play Texas A&M.
Yeah, they're going to play Texas.
It's going to be an SEC.
It's going to be Florida State.
Yeah.
So shout out Kentucky fans. Whatever you did worked. I mean, you went from the hardest draw, by far the hardest draw in the tournament, to the by far the easiest draw right now.
But what I say about this tournament and what I've learned so far is every single time we've gotten to a point where you think whatever has happened has led to a favorable situation. Like when Virginia went down, everyone's texting me and they're like, it's this side of the bracket is wide open. North Carolina is the best team left on this side of the bracket. All you got to do is just get there. Just get there. It's easy. Just get there, and then you're all set up to win. And I think Kentucky is doing the thing where they're counting the chickens before they hatch.
Yes.
And they're all tweeting. They're like, "It's Catlanta, baby. We're going down to Atlanta. This is what we do. Big Blue Nation. We'll see you down there." Yeah. Matt Jones, Kentucky Sports Radio. We're calling in. You know, they're talking shit about us. I'm sure. You know, after
no,
what
they're
always
not. Don't
said.
talk shit about us.
I hope not.
They're
I hope
not.
Just know that we loved hosting that show that one time.
We love
KSR. But I'm just saying, Kentucky's getting way too high right now. They're celebrating. They're basically already acting like they're in the Final Four.
They are, and that's
which
dangerous.
makes me nervous.
But then you're Kentucky fans, so I think this is the cycle. You're like, oh man, the brackets open up, we're doing it, and then you're like, oh crap, I'm counting my chickens before they hatch. Crap, I gotta calm down. And then you look back at the bracket and you're like, never mind.
Yeah,
I think we're good.
Then you look down and you're like, oh, Bruce Weber's team.
We got Bruce Weber and then two meme teams. we got the old lady with
Sister Jean. Sister Jean, when she eclipses her prediction. How mad is Sister Jean when they get to the Elite Eight?
You got a team of goddamn first rounders that got to beat Bruce Weber and then an old lady with a scarf or a 5'7", like just
a transfer team. It's transfer
team
you.
Full of transfers.
A bunch of 24-year-olds that couldn't play at other schools.
Oh God. Congrats to Kentucky fans on the path.
You did it.
The path to the national championship. It'll one team on the left side that I like, and I'm not just saying it because they beat Ohio State. I think Gonzaga. This is looking favorable for them. I do believe in Michigan. I like Michigan. But I think if you're like a Michigan fan, you're just kind of lucky at this. You know you're lucky to be here. That's not to say you don't believe in your team. It's certainly opened up for Michigan. Michigan's the highest seed left on the left side. So if you're doing that sort of thing, you would say it's Michigan's to lose. I think anyone who's watched these games, you would probably say it's now Kentucky's to lose. And then I would argue Gonzaga's probably second because the same sort of points we made when Gonzaga beat Ohio State, which is that they beat Ohio State without really 3 of their best players playing well. I mean, Perkins almost had a double-double with points and assists. He was playing, but that's not – I mean, he has more scoring within him. I on the last pod, I kind of felt bad for saying that he wasn't great because he was pretty good. But Tilly didn't do much of anything against Ohio State. Jonathan Williams didn't do much of anything.
It was 2 guys. It was Hachimura and Norvell.
Yeah, if you get all those weapons that Gonzaga has playing well together, they are terrifying, and they're good enough to win it all. And that to me is interesting. Also, just given last year's thing,
we get the redemption tour,
and we have this thing again where it's like, okay, Carolina goes to the final, loses to Villanova, comes back the next year, beats Gonzaga. So then Gonzaga gets to come back the next year and beat whoever. Maybe they beat Villanova and like tie the whole cycle up.
I think that might be the only way that I come back on this tournament.
If Gonzaga,
that's the only storyline that I buy into where it's like this makes a little bit of sense to me.
Is it the redemption tour?
If we get a redemption
tour.
So
what are you rooting for at this point? Other than just like chaos, like I don't mean
I don't
rooting
root for
against
chaos.
Okay, so what do you? I don't mean rooting against either. I don't want you to answer it. I just hope Duke loses or anything like that.
I'm just saying the best way that this plays out now.
Who's become your team? West Virginia,
Texas A&M.
Huggy Bear? No,
Texas
don't
A&M.
do Texas A&M.
Yeah.
That's just it makes us look better.
No. If Texas A&M doesn't win the title, then they have to pay back that game. They can't play any better than that.
That's just okay. We lost to the champs, so really we got second place too.
Yes,
that's what you're doing there.
Exactly.
Calm down.
Exactly. No, I think the best. First of all, the other side of the bracket. If we get some sort of matchup where Duke plays Villanova or Kansas plays Villanova, that's a win for everybody. Or
we are rooting for that.
Or West Virginia. Like just that side of the bracket is fun. I think those games will be great. Sort of what you expect. The South, I don't think there's any way to salvage the South.
There's not.
There's no way to salvage the South. I mean, maybe Nevada, Kentucky is a fun game just because we get the Martin twins and the Stevens. Maybe. I mean, I don't think Sister Jean going to play Kentucky will work out well. The fans will probably threaten Sister Jean. She'll probably hear some things she hasn't heard since she was in middle school or something back in the 30s or 20s or whenever that was. I just don't see a world in which the South can be salvaged. Gonzaga, I would love to see Gonzaga, Michigan.
Gonzaga, Michigan would be a good game.
That's a fun game, but I don't see Michigan beating Texas A&M.
Texas A&M, Florida State would be like I don't think like the games that you're going to get America to care about. There's certainly none in the South. Kentucky at this point, I think most people just kind of assume Kentucky's going to roll, so there's really no point in watching those games. The East is fine. I mean, the East is basically chalk. Wichita State was the 4, but otherwise you got 1-5-3-2 up there. That's playing out like – I mean, Purdue doesn't have Haas. That's not they're not going to be the Purdue team we know and love, but maybe, as everyone's saying, maybe that's better. maybe they spread the floor now. They're going to hit threes. Yeah, so if we get Kansas, Duke, we get Villanova, and really Villanova, West Virginia is going to be an awesome game. I'm kind of pulling for West Virginia. I think a situation where Huggy Bear wins a national title is awesome. I think a situation where Gonzaga wins a national title is awesome. Michigan, the only reason I'm hesitant with Michigan is that I don't feel like this is Michigan anywhere close to Michigan's best team in the last 5-7 years or whatever. And I always have like a thing where like I hate it when like the best teams don't win, like the Villanova team that won the title.
That's why we're mad about. That's why I'm upset about this tournament. That's the reason why I'm
really none of these teams are like the best teams that we've had in recent years for these programs, except for like Purdue, Texas Tech, some of the.
Even we're looking at like the ACC. There are 4 ACC teams. I mean, these are not even close to the 4 best ACC teams that are left.
Right.
That are like from the conference that are left in the tournament.
You bring up a good point. I'm going off on this aside. There are 4 ACC teams left, and the great thing about this tournament, the one great thing to me about this is that it's put to bed all of the conference arguments where people use NCAA tournament results to argue conferences, because we have 4 of the 16 teams are from the ACC. We have 4 from the Big 12 as well, so maybe you could argue the Big 12 is the best. But if you're an ACC fan, you're saying we have 4 of the best. That means we're the best conference. But that's immediately shut down when the team that steamrolled your conference lost to a freaking 16 seed. And then the team that was arguably the second best team in the conference, North Carolina, and if not the second best team, probably the third or fourth best team. They don't even make it to the Sweet 16. So you've really got a paradox there.
And a team that's been running zone all year because they can't teach man-to-man is still in the Sweet 16.
No, Syracuse has been running zone.
That's right. Syracuse has been doing that.
So, but my point with that is like, you can't argue. Like, basically, the point is these things don't teach us anything about conferences.
It's all about matchups.
Back to my Michigan point. I want Michigan to win the national title in the sense that it would be poetic for Louisville to have their title, the 2013 title, taken away,
and then Michigan to get a title.
And Michigan to get the title this year. Also, Duncan Robinson, friend of the program, as we've said before. We've bragged about that. I texted with him last night, not to brag, after the.
Was he excited?
Shot. Yeah, I texted him. I was like, "Hey, that was cool, man," or something like that with exclamation points, and he was like, "I know, man. Really cool." And it was like, it's just like those sorts of conversations you sort of feel
it's
like
a cold conversation.
I sort of felt like in that moment I was in the locker room, like with the rest of the team. So
just one of the guys.
I've kind of become a Michigan. I'm like on the bandwagon now.
You're like you're like the Dockage, like going back.
Yeah. I'm
reverse Dockage.
I'm going Ohio State to Michigan. So yeah, Michigan would be cool, but the one reservation I have about that is I don't think they're as good as like some of their past teams, but who cares? So I'd root for that.
Plus,
I don't know.
Their front court is what matters, and they're going to go against the best front court in the tournament. Which I'm saying that now. Texas A&M, you have the best front court in the tournament.
What about Kansas? Can we talk ourselves into Kansas winning it and that being like a fun story?
Yes.
That would be a fun story, right?
That'd be a great story, but I'm once again concerned because what does Kansas do?
Drop bags. Okay. Sorry.
Sorry, that Billy. Sorry, Billy.
Sorry.
They shoot a lot of threes. They rely on the three-point shot.
Yeah.
And Graham, Newman, Vic, Svi, all four of those guys, they're kind of, wishy-washy at times.
Yeah.
So I'm still concerned about Kansas with that. And then if Azubuike and DeSosa have to be guys on the inside to get them points, that scares me.
Yeah.
And they have to play Duke.
They probably. We don't know. Nothing's guaranteed. They first have to get by Clemson, who played a game today. And listen, you and I have not talked about Auburn. Auburn has had arguably the greatest season in school history, and I only say arguably because I don't know shit about Auburn's history. I assume it was the greatest season in school history.
Remember when Auburn lost to Richmond that time? That's about
Charles
all.
Barkley played there. People forget. Auburn had a great year. You and I were waiting for the other shoe to drop all season. We did not want to talk about them. Auburn fans got mad at us. They're like, when are you going to talk about Auburn? It sort of became a joke on here that we purposely ignored Auburn. Are you ready to talk about Auburn? Because I think we do owe it to those fans to kind of talk about their season. We watched the game tonight. Your team sucks.
Well, they get the Tony. They get the classic Tony in the first half, 43-19.
Yeah,
which is great for Brown now to give someone a Tony to keep the the Bennett thing going in this
there
tournament, which was nice.
Yeah.
And then from there was no need to watch Auburn. I didn't even get to see Barkley's reaction. I don't think anyone even asked him about because it was so embarrassing that they got blown out like this. And Clemson's not even at full strength. So I don't know what's going on with Auburn. Auburn's also not at full. People are going to be upset. Auburn's also not at full strength.
Is Auburn ever at full strength?
I know, exactly. Exactly.
Auburn has a close one with Charleston, and in the post-game presser, it wasn't a presser, it was the interview that's the sideline walking back to the locker room. Bruce Pearl does his personable, like, I'm Bruce Pearl, everybody loves me. Everybody forgets that I was a rat, and everybody forgets that, like, I snitched on people for NCAA violations and then committed NCAA violations myself, and I'm dropping bags, but I'm also a good guy because I get on TV and paint my chest. So he's doing that move where he's like, everybody loves me, I'm Bruce Pearl. And he's like, this one was for Chuck. Chuck, I know Kenny would have roasted you if we lost, so there you go, Chuck. You're welcome. And that I could tell in that moment. I was like, Bruce Pearl doesn't want this. He's not ready for this. Like, you know what Coach K said? Like, he was annoyed that he had to play a first-round game. That's what the Killers. Basically, what I'm saying is Bruce Pearl had some good guy vibes after that first win, and we don't like good guys.
He had
good
a
guys
happy
don't
to
win.
be there vibe.
Very happy.
To be there, we made it the second round. We
Yeah.
got the monkey a little bit off our back. We don't have to worry about this thing. We didn't lose to a 13 seed. Everything is fine.
Yeah. So there we go. There's your Auburn talk, Auburn fans.
And shout out Gabe DeVoe. Great game from Gabe DeVoe and the Clemson Tigers.
That's it. Anything else we need to hit before we wrap this up?
One more thing before we get out of here. Leonard Hamilton, you talked about things coming back. Leonard Hamilton is back on the scene. He's back on the map. He's where he needs to be. And Leonard Hamilton is a man of many emotions and also no emotions. You have no idea what he's thinking. You have no idea what he's saying to his team. You have no idea how he's feeling at any point in the game. And I think we need to appreciate this man for what he is. There's this great picture, and it's just Leonard Hamilton's face, and it's Leonard Hamilton happy, Leonard Hamilton sad, and it's just the same exact picture. That will come back. We will see that again because Florida State is back on the scene. People are going to be talking about Florida State basketball again. I feel bad for last year's team that was so talented that they got blown out by Xavier.
That you said was the best team in the country at one point.
I thought that they were – and what I said, right logic, wrong timing. A year later, they come back full circle, get the revenge on Xavier, and I don't know. I was just super excited for Florida State because everyone had already pinned this. You're like, did you watch last year? Did you see the game last year?
Yeah.
How are you going to pick Florida State? And then you watch the game today. And it's like, well, Florida State's a pretty good team. Terrence Mann had a great game.
That might be my favorite impression you do, is the collective impression of everybody.
Yes, of everyone. That's how I hear it in my head as they tweeted me.
Leonard Hamilton, that's a story I can get behind. Leonard Hamilton going to the Final Four, winning it all.
Let's do it.
Let's do that one. I'll get behind that. First ever win I saw for Florida State in program history over a 1 seed. Tough loss for Xavier. Do you want to should we digest the Xavier thing? the
What's
vibe
the
around
fallout?
Xavier? Is that we sort of talked about it on a pod we did a while ago where we sort of said it felt like this was the moment for Xavier, that they were getting the program push. They have moved from the A-10 into the Big East. They are now a respectable program. They get a 1 seed for the first time in program history. They win the Big East. They've arrived. It's time. This is it. They're going to the Final Four for the first time. This has to be the year with these seniors that they have.
Yeah, this is Blewett's run.
Blewitt and Macura.
Yep.
It's all arriving at this point, and they lose in the second round like this to Florida State, and they sort of choke it away. I mean, they were up 12 in the second half. I forget how much time was left, but there wasn't much. It was like 12 with 10 minutes or something, which isn't, it's not an insurmountable lead by any stretch of the imagination.
But as soon as Savoy hit that 3 to get that 1 point lead, you could just see they just tightened up. I mean, they felt it. And obviously Macura was out of the game, fouled out, which is one of their leaders. But as soon as that happened, the whole team, they just looked shook. I just want to ask you about Chris Mack and his situation.
The Chris Mack mystery? Are we doing them? Should we do it? Should we get a new mystery?
Look,
should we get
Kyle?
Kyle, do we
Kyle's
need
not ready.
Michael Porter is gone. We have no Michael Porter mystery. We need a new one, Kyle. Please let us have this. Kyle, give us the thumbs up or thumbs down. We need to know. Kyle's giving it the thumbs up. We have the mystery. Play the music, Kyle.
And this is the Chris Mack mystery. And this is the Chris Mack mystery. I can't believe we're here. I can't believe we've gotten to this point. We thought that Chris Mack would at least get to the Sweet 16. We thought he'd at least get to the regional, right? I mean, as the 1 seed in the West region, seemed like a fair draw. Everyone's kind of wondering who's going to be the big dog in this bracket, on this side of the bracket. And now he's out of the tournament. And now there's a little thing that came up on Twitter that I saw. I showed it to you. Louisville fans. Dave Padgett was the interim coach. He is now, probably going to be relieved of his duties or relieved of the interim title, which means he doesn't have a job. Louisville fans are tweeting that they want Chris Mack to pick up the phone. And they want Chris Mack to come to the ACC. And they want Chris Mack to go to his first Final Four because he deserves it. He needs to get out of Cincinnati, Ohio.
Yep.
Come on down to Kentucky. Come on down south and take these boys back to the Final Four where they belong.
Chris.
And Donovan Mitchell signs off on it.
Chris, you can stay in Cincinnati.
Yep.
And you can have your Skyline chili.
Right on the river.
Or you can come on down to Louisville where we got horse racing and bourbon and hookers. Now, the choice is yours, Chris. We play in the ACC. We got 4 teams in the Sweet 16. Y'all got 1. Y'all got Villanova. But we got 4, and our best team didn't even make it.
Villanova.
Villanova. I don't even know if that was even anywhere close.
I think it's
Was that a Kentucky accent? I don't know.
I think it was. It
that was close enough.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, that's the mystery. Chris Mack's a Xavier guy through and through. Xavier fans are going to kill us for even entertaining this thought.
But if there was ever a time, I always pinpoint times when people are willing to leave a program. It's usually when they have a class of seniors that they have groomed all the way from point A to point Z, and they've done the whole run of the gamut. They feel tired. They feel success that they had these guys go from 1 to 4, get them done. And you don't want to start anew. And if you're going to start anew anyway, maybe you start anew somewhere else. And maybe this is the last ride. I mean, Roy Williams, when he left Kansas, he was like, okay, Kirk Heinrich, Nick Collison, I'm done with these guys. I can go do something different now.
He cussed out Bonnie Bernstein, and then 5 minutes later took the job. He cussed out Bonnie Bernstein for asking him if he was leaving.
Coach Roy, how do you feel about the North Carolina job? Don't ask me about that
God damn it, Bonnie. How dare you? But also, I'm taking the North Carolina job. Yes, I am taking the job. Yeah, Chris Mack, Xavier guy through and through. But I actually agree with you. I don't think it's going to happen. I think
I just like Louisville putting it out there.
Yeah, I don't think it's going to happen. But if it did happen, and I know this is like a middleman stance to take. I'm playing both sides of this, but I don't think it's going to happen. But it wouldn't surprise me if it did for all the reasons you said. Because this is the time is where like if you're Chris Mack, you can convince yourself that you've reached the top at Xavier. This is the best you can do. And maybe this is all Xavier can provide. And Xavier, that's not a bad thing for Xavier fans. I know Cincinnati fans are like pumping their fists. They're like, suck it, Xavier. This is the cap for you, as Cincinnati hasn't done anything in a long time either. But that's not to degrade Xavier. It's just, I mean, the opportunity at Louisville is obviously it's obviously a better program. He's going to make more money.
They're going to call. That's what we're going to say.
Yeah, and there could be a position where he's like, I love Xavier. I love Cincinnati. I love Skyline Chili. But I also would love the opportunity to actually win a national championship. And I would love Louisville, like all the money that comes with that. I mean, we've gone over to Tom Jurich, what he did to Louisville athletics, and just the money that program is churning out.
Look at all the buildings on campus. Yeah. There's a lot to go into.
People are very, very invested in Louisville sports or Louisville Cardinals athletics in Louisville, and that's got to be an attractive thing for Chris Mack. So it's going to be interesting. The mystery. We got a new mystery.
But basically, keep your eyes peeled on that situation and see what happens with that, because Chris Mack will be on TV, right? They'll have him.
Yeah, he's definitely going to be on TV.
And the more that his profile, rises over the next couple of weeks, the more calls he'll get. And Chris Mack could be one of those things too, where if we see Sean Miller leave Arizona,
Xavier to Arizona. We've seen it before.
We've seen it before, folks. Would be the first time.
When Xavier fired Sean Miller, and then he took the job. I should explain that. I used to troll John Rothstein with that. Where one of my favorite trolls of John Rothstein is when he talks about a coach that's doing well. I'll say, man, I can't believe that other program fired him. Like, if it's a coach that used to coach at another, like, for example, if Shaka Smart started doing well at Texas, I'd be like, can you believe that VCU fired this guy? And then John's like, what? That's not what happened. That's one of my favorites.
Just to give you a history lesson.
So I did that with Sean Miller one time with him, and he bought. He bit on that. It was awesome. It was a fun time. So, the Chris Mack mystery is alive and well. We have a new mystery. Fun times on One Shining Podcast. You got anything else before we wrap it up?
I don't. I'm sorry. Joel Berry and Theo Pinson, congratulations on a great career.
We don't mean to be a wet blanket on this tournament. We're excited for what's to come. I just think I just want to reiterate that, like, the upsets are awesome, the moments are awesome, but we just want to see some of these good games. And I think Tate and I are in agreement that when the bracket came out, we were licking our lips at Kentucky, Arizona. We wanted to see Kentucky or Arizona versus Virginia. There were all these matchups we wanted to see. I think we're going to see some in the East. I mean, we're destined, no matter what happens in the East, it's going to be awesome. Those two games.
West Virginia Villanova is going to be great. Javon Carter versus Jalen Brunson is going to be great.
And even if it's West Virginia Tech, like, the worst matchup to me would be West Virginia Texas Tech. I'm still there for that. That's going to be. I mean, we've seen it. They probably played. How many times they played? They played at least twice, but I don't know if they played in the tournament. We've already seen that twice at least. But I still think that's going to be an awesome game. Anything that happens in the East will be cool. But yeah, just the way the South shook out, the way the West. I mean, Gonzaga, Michigan will be a game. I don't know. You guys get what we're trying to say. It's always a fun. The tournament's always fun. It's just the refs need to get out of their way. We need to see teams start hitting shots.
Yeah, let's
Can somebody break
shots,
a 2-3 zone?
Yeah.
Can somebody score against a 2-3 zone? And then I'm going to be back on board with this tournament. And until then, I don't know.
I think we have hope for the Sweet 16.
We do. Yeah.
We don't want to be sour right now.
Yeah, we don't mean to.
We'll stay optimistic.
Yeah, we're excited to see.
And now I can just watch games and not care. So it's gonna be
it's
even
fun.
more fun. Yeah,
it actually is kind of fun.
I feel relieved.
Yeah, this is good. I don't want to win the tournament anyway.
I don't need to win.
It's more fun to lose. So we'll be back. We're gonna do a pod for Tuesday, right? Mm-hmm. We're gonna do a pod kind of previewing the Sweet 16. This was more of a reaction thing to what we just saw tonight, but we're gonna do one where we're blowing out the Sweet 16, getting excited. Might have a Chris Mack mystery update. We don't know. We'll see.
We'll see.
We'll have to keep our eyes peeled for that. But so check that out. Subscribe, review, tell your friends, do all that sort of stuff. And until then, stay the crew.